One of the most iconic horror characters of all time is Frankenstein's monster. It has probably been used in advertising and media for close to 100 years at this point. And while the story has been told a billion times in a billion different ways, most of them don't nail the tragedy quite like 2025 Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein does. The acting in this movie is fantastic. The cinematography is awesome and the storytelling is done in a great way. Even if you know the Frankenstein story, this movie is 100% worth the watch. I will say the horror in this movie is a lot like The Haunting of Bly Manor, except it's actually enjoyable and not really boring. But I say that because nothing actually scary happens in the movie. The horror is the creation of the man himself and the tragedy that goes with him. If you've seen this one, let me know what you thought of it. I was extremely impressed, so let's get into it. We start off the movie with a prelude, where it seems some seamen have run aground. And with what seems like an insurmountable task ahead of them, their morale is at an all-time low. When the captain is informed of this, he tells their men that their job is not to think, and that they have a mission to get to the North Pole. Regardless of how encouraging this actually is, the men do get back to work trying to free the boat. Later that day, the men hear an explosion in the distance, a fire that someone must have started. When they go to check it out, they find that it was a camp with sled dogs, but none of the dogs were harmed. However, the pilot of the dogs has lost a lot of blood, the men not knowing what could have done this. They hear some howling, so they take the man back to the ship. However, the howling isn't from an animal, as we see the men readying their rifles, waiting for the creature at the ship. When it gets close enough, they fire. Despite shooting it over and over, it keeps coming, so they retreat to the ship. It catches some of them on the way in, showing its strength by tossing them like nothing, and even decapitating this guy by just punching him. After it gets on board, it's revealed he wants the man they saved from the sled. However, the creature speaks English and the seamen speak German, so they just go back to trying to kill it, which from what I have seen so far, obviously is not going well for them. The creature gets closer to the man from the sled, calling out to Victor, before a man gets a bigger gun and fires. This doesn't actually harm the creature, but it gets knocked back until it falls over the boat. The creature shows its incredible strength once more when it starts pushing the ship over. To stop it from doing this, they take aim at the ice below the creature and shoot so that it'll make it fall through the ice, and they are able to get away. Afterwards, they go to talk to the man from the sled, who reveals he created the creature, and it won't stop until it's captured him, begging the men to let the creature take him to save themselves. They ask what the creature is, and he reveals his name is Victor Frankenstein, and he created it. He begins to tell his tale, starting with when he was a child. His last name means conquer, and his father lived up to that name, as they had accumulated a large amount of wealth. However, his father hated him and his wife. But despite this, he dedicated a lot of time to teaching Victor about human anatomy. However, he demanded Victor took it seriously as he bears the Frankenstein name. His father used to whip his hands when he got questions wrong until he got older, where he could actually use his hands for the work. So to prevent damage to them, his father started whipping his face instead. One day, Victor was playing cards with his mom when she started having intense stomach pain and bleeding. She had been pregnant, and they don't really say exactly what happens here, but his father performs a procedure that saves the baby, but Victor's mom passes away. This is devastating, as his father hated him, and his mother is all he really had. On top of this, his brother William was adored by his father due to having a much more calm disposition compared to Victor's lively spirit. Victor's father was one of the best doctors in the world, and Victor, sitting on this thought for many years, confronts his father one day, accusing him of letting his mother die. He responds that he did all he could to save his mother, which Victor responds with, "So you failed." And maybe that's why your dad hates you, dude. Maybe you're just kind of a dick. His father responds pretty bluntly that nobody can conquer death, but Victor says he will, promising to surpass his father. He says that night he started having dreams of a dark angel, which pretty plainly resembles his mother's coffin, clearly symbolizing her death is what sparks this in him. Victor explains that later on, there were 2 revolts on his father's plantation, causing them to lose all of their wealth, but at least they were able to keep the property. A short jump later, we see Victor's father has passed, and we are told William went with one side of the family to a different part of the country, and Victor took himself to the Royal College of Medicine. There he would present his ideology that they need to not only slow down death, but stop it entirely. They ask how he proposes they could do this, and he presents a dead subject that is missing most of its body outside of its upper torso, brain, and one arm. He reanimates the subject, and the room is kind of tweaking at the idea that the dead guy is moving again, but the professor says that this is a place of science and not a carnival act, suggesting Victor is just playing a trick. However, he throws a ball towards the subject, and it catches it, proving that it is alive. Despite being a place of science, the professors decide this is unholy. They say God gives life and God gives death. And I don't know how these guys became professors of science. It's not very science-based of you. Because of this, Victor accuses God of being inept after what he has proven he can do. The rest of the room seems to be on Victor's side, but Victor takes his leave. While walking through town, a man named Henry stops him and says he has a letter from his brother William. William is coming to visit and is getting married to Mia Goth. Good for him, man. Henry also reveals that he was at his presentation at the college, and Victor asks what he thought of it. Henry responds saying it was brilliant, but the way he presents himself will make it so that he goes nowhere with others. And at the end of the conversation, Henry says in 3 days' time, he will show Victor something that will change everything. We go ahead 3 days and see Henry demonstrating his passion for photography.
The peach. The peach. Turn the peach. Turn it. You bit it again.
Before Victor comes in, and Henry is excited to show him something. After briefly talking about Victor's work, Henry shows him a piece of work that demonstrates the lymphatic system, created by pouring resin over an actual lymphatic system. They discuss that this could be a secret to eternal life, as they believe energy is stored within it. Henry, thinking Victor is brilliant, tells him he will provide him with anything he needs for his pursuit of eternal life. Victor asks what he wants in return, but Henry says he may ask for a small favor one day. However, this is mostly about the pursuit of knowledge. Victor appreciates the offer, but says that he works alone. Henry tells him that he's really quiet. However, William and Mia Goth arrive, so Victor goes to greet them, telling Henry he will consider it. The two brothers greet each other, and Victor goes to greet William's wife, who is not named Mia and in fact named Elizabeth. Victor seems to be very attracted to her and tells her it is a pleasure. We jump ahead, and the brothers, Elizabeth and Henry, are having lunch. The brothers are arguing about how Victor presents himself, as he doesn't believe in modesty. However, Victor thinks that something as important as his work isn't owed modesty due to its importance. This makes Elizabeth laugh, and Victor asks why she's laughing, as he thinks his ideas are worthwhile. She responds with ideas are not worthwhile by themselves, using war as an example. This results in Henry asking William to have a cigar and brandy with him in the study, as Elizabeth is his niece and has heard her rant about her ideology before, assuming William has as well. He takes Henry up on the offer, and the two leave Elizabeth and Victor alone. Elizabeth explains that ideas of valor and country are great ideas, but men are dying for them, in wars brought upon by men who aren't even on the battlefield. She says these ideas are invoked by fools, so Victor asks if she thinks he's a fool. She doesn't reply, just smiling and telling him to go enjoy cigars and brandy. In present day, we hear a ruckus on the boat as the watchmen believe they saw the creature. They're terrified, but the captain says the man drowned. Like this guy wasn't just shot 15 times and still almost pushed the boat over, but whatever. Victor goes back to his story, Henry showing him the property he will be letting him use for the research, which is pretty fire. You're telling me Henry just had a tower sitting around ready to go? I hope my brother marries me a goth so I can have a tower. Henry tells him he can have whatever he wants, as long as they agree to work together. When Victor realizes how much Henry can actually provide for him, he agrees to shake his hand, striking the deal. After this, we see Henry at the gallows picking out men to take to the tower as subjects. He picks one with a strong back, and on the way home, he sees Elizabeth and begins following her as she goes to confession, curious about what she could possibly be confessing to. He sneaks into the booth, presenting himself as a priest. He disguises his voice, and when she starts confessing, she says the sin is out of intent and not deed, and that it's about her husband's brother. He asks if it's out of lust, and she says hatred, making him recoil. Asking her to explain, she goes into detail about how he is crude and loves playing the victim, and when he asks her to elaborate,
he's easy to spot, even on a busy street on market day.
This is pretty fun misdirection, as the two actually go out to a nice dinner after this. He asks about what books she got at the market, and it's revealed that she has an interest in science, but with smaller things like insects. They're at a ballroom, and when a new song starts,
Permit me, sister.
And W was, I guess, because they seem to have a great time dancing. Victor saying for the first time in a long time, his interest in life was greater than his interest in death. While having his instruments constructed for his tower, he asks William to stay behind to look over operations, because he trusts him above everybody else. This obviously being because he's off doing nefarious things, like catching butterflies with his wife. This is a pretty big act of betrayal, as we see William indeed looked over operations and saw that everything was done perfectly. And also, William being his brother is the only reason he has any of this for his research. At a later date, we see Victor attending to a gathering with Elizabeth and Henry. However, Henry is clearly implying that Victor is getting distracted from his work that Henry has been generously supplying everything for. He tells him that funding will end soon and that a war is coming, but also his patience is running out. Victor realizes he needs to focus up and get back to it, but the next time he is conducting his research, Elizabeth shows up, using the excuse that the butterfly they caught missed him. Victor confesses his feelings for her in full, saying he believes that they have a very strong bond. However, despite how much they've enjoyed each other's company, Elizabeth is not a freaking whore and says believing something does not make it true. She's clearly split on the decision, however, emotionally giving Victor back the butterfly and telling him that she has chosen, implying she will choose William over him. This upsets Victor, but he actually has a breakthrough that night. He discovers that his battery he invented needs to go above the lymphatic system. I always overthink scenes like this. Like, I'm not a doctor, and obviously the writers don't know how to bring someone back to life. But what do you mean it goes above the lymphatic system? It's all over your body. What does that sentence even imply? Anyway, a week has passed as the war began, but Victor now has many bodies to test on after his breakthrough. Henry being in a much better mood due to the development. He goes across the battlefield and finds the most perfect body parts he can, sawing and cutting pieces out of every soldier to create what Victor finds to be the perfect amalgamation. The scene is pretty unique, as there is a lot of gore, but it's done in a way that it's almost not gratuitous at all. It really gives off a sciencey vibe instead of a horror movie gore vibe, which weirdly makes it easier to sit through. I don't think I even flinched watching Victor pull on tendons and saw through limbs. A neat little section. We see Victor cleaning up his workspace, and all that's left is him in the amalgamation. And exactly on time, a storm rolls in. Victor calls for Henry, telling him it's time. When he goes to look for him, Henry is hiding himself, telling Victor to give him the medicine in his cane. The medicine is mercury, used to treat syphilis. But we see he has actually been wearing a wig, and his contributions to Victor was intended to help stop him from dying. Now that the time has come for reanimation, Henry says he wants his brain put into the amalgamation. Victor, offended by this, runs off and says they will talk about it after, making Henry very upset. Henry starts threatening to ruin some of the equipment needed for the reanimation, and a scuffle breaks out. But due to the storm, they both slip. However, Henry slips towards the area meant to have lightning travel through it, an area with no ledges to hold onto. Victor tries to save him, but Henry's shirt rips and he falls to his death. Victor hurries downstairs and sees Henry has passed and immediately goes back to setting up the final steps. I don't really see this as Victor being heartless, because this really is his moment. I think it would have benefited Henry if they just saw how the first run went, and this is Victor's dream and he interfered. Obviously it sucks that he died, but chill man, we don't even know if it's gonna work yet. Henry messing with the equipment resulted in one of the rods getting bent, causing lightning to channel in multiple unintended parts of the room, resulting in the experiment going awry. Victor, seeing it has failed, goes to his room, confronting the Dark Angel, telling it that it had lied. It led him to believe he could prevent death, as he goes to bed angry. Because of this, he is very surprised when he wakes up and sees the amalgamation is in fact alive, mimicking Victor's movements. Creation being very afraid, as it is essentially a confused, overdeveloped newborn right now. We see during this scene that Elizabeth has been expecting a letter from her uncle, and that they should go visit the two, as she hasn't heard from him. Victor is showing the creation how to be a person, and also restrains it as he needs to stay put so he can go gather his thoughts. This achievement actually results in regret from Victor, as he has nothing left to achieve, but he does still tend to the creation. I'm gonna start calling the creature him instead of it now, because he is definitely an actual person at this point. At this point, Victor's disgusted with what he has made, telling his creation not to touch him. The newborn man still doesn't understand things around it, so it picks up a blade and grips it, causing a gash in his hand. When Victor goes to tend to the wound, he says that it is healing on its own. We also see a new emotion from the man, anger, and Victor calms him down out of fear. Because of this, Victor restrains him, and he grows really aggravated as the only word the man will say is Victor. But the man has grown afraid of him from all of his yelling. At this moment, Elizabeth and William arrive at the tower, and Victor is extremely eager to show Elizabeth his notes and what he has found. However, Elizabeth is only interested in her uncle, Victor telling her he isn't there. Because of this, she isn't interested in seeing the notes, as William and Victor ascend the tower. During this time, she hears the man whispering Victor, and she follows the whispering, finding him. Mia is extremely interested in seeing the wounds on the man, asks who hurt him. We don't see what he responds with, but we know he only knows one word at this point. William tells Victor that he received a letter from the Royal Medical Society seeking an audience with him, but at this moment, Elizabeth comes in very upset as she believes Victor hurts him. This results in the three of them going back to the man, William flabbergasted that Victor actually did it. Elizabeth is upset about the treatment of the man, saying that Victor knows better. William later that night, as Victor is turning in, asks if he ever considered what part of the body contains a soul, saying that there is something completely unnatural about what he achieved. During this time, Elizabeth goes down the stairs to visit the man unattended. She spends some time with him, and the man finally says his second word, Elizabeth. When she goes to leave, Victor tells her she should not interact with it right now, that there is something wrong with it, using evidence that it only knows one word, Victor. But Elizabeth presents the idea that maybe the word Victor is the only one that has meaning to him, as that is his creator. She says that he knows pain, so he has intelligence. Victor is upset with how this interaction went and goes to confront the creature out of frustration, where he bounds it even further and starts beating it, looking for signs of intelligence. A very cruel scene. The next morning, he tells William that he believed he made a mistake with his creation, and tells him he needs to show him something. That something is Henry's body. He tells William he needs to take Elizabeth back home so that this information is kept from her. William is actually very supportive of Victor, and just does that. Completely doesn't care that Henry is dead. Loads up Elizabeth and just inquires a bit more, asking what Victor believes the lifespan of the creature is. He tells him short before they leave, but Victor is saying this because he intends on killing the creature. He douses the entire tower in gasoline before lighting it ablaze, as we see the man crying in fear for Victor. Victor regrets this, but by the time the regret rolls in, it's too late. He can't go back in to save the man, the explosion of the gasoline sending him flying back and breaking his leg. Elizabeth asks William to turn the carriage around, as she had a feeling Victor was going to kill the man. But when the carriage arrives, the two see that exactly that has happened. We don't see how they respond as we jump to present day, the men on the ship screaming for help. The captain goes to check on them, but upon opening the door, the man is there. The captain tells him to go on and kill them both and prove Victor's tale true. This stops the man, as he says that he will tell them his side of the tale, picking back up right off where he left off, with him being abandoned to burn. The man managed to break his chains and escape through the chute that Victor disposed of corpses in, landing in the ocean. He ends up on shore, having no sense of direction without Victor. He wanders into the forest and finds some clothes from the remains of the bodies. Eventually stumbling across some wildlife who are eating berries, he indulges as well, and feeds a deer some of the berries, bringing him some joy that we really haven't seen out of him yet. However, this happiness is short-lived when hunters arrive shooting the deer and being afraid of the man, shoot him as well. We know that this won't really do much, but the man retreats through the forest, eventually ending up in a barn. While the man is sleeping, the owners of the barn return, and it's revealed that the hunters live there. It seems to be a larger family, and some of the members being a pair of young girls and their blind grandfather. He watched the family from afar, and this is how he learned how to speak. The man longed to be part of the family and started doing stuff for them, such as gathering wood. The family chalked this up to being the guardian of the forest and would leave out offerings such as food and clothes, bringing the man great joy. However, one day, wolves arrived to the farm and began pursuing the livestock, and the hunters started killing the wolves as the wolves killed the sheep, painting a bleak picture for the man. He sees that violence is a part of the world, skewing his outlook on things. One day, when the hunters weren't around, the man approached the old man, longing for connection. When asked who's there, he tells the old man that he's a traveler, but the old man welcomes him regardless. He senses the fear in the man and tells him there's nothing to be afraid of, touching his hand and clothes, assuming he's a soldier. From this, the old man puts together that he is the spirit of the forest that has actually been hiding in their barn. Because of this, the old man offers him companionship, saying this can be his home and he can be his friend. If you're not familiar with the story, this is where the already tragic tale takes an even worse turn. The man spends a great deal of time with the older man, learning how to read, experience seasons, and experience his friendship. The old man teaches him the importance of forgive and forget, but he has no memories outside of dreams. Because of this, he returns to the ruins of the tower, discovering how his existence came to be, this hurting him deeply. Along this, he found a letter from the college with Victor's full name and the address to the college. When he obtains this knowledge, he returns to the old man, where we see tragedy has struck. The wolves returned, but this time the hunters were not there. The old man has been attacked, and the wolves start attacking the creature. He kills the wolves for this, and he helps the old man up, telling him that he is a good man, and that he is his friend. But just as he says this, the hunters arrive and begin attacking him. He kills one of them before being forced to leave the only home he has known, and the only friend he ever had. After recovering from his injuries, he begins to understand the unfortunate circumstances of his existence, saying that for many pains, there's only one cure, and he will never get to experience that. We go to present day, and because of his cruel existence, he demands Victor make him a companion. We jump back, and we see we're at the day of William's wedding, still being very kind to Victor, all things considered. However, as the night approaches, we see that after leaving the barn, he ended up at the venue, likely following the address from the card and ending up in the same town. Victor goes to see Elizabeth right before the ceremony, explaining to her that the fever that took him over, causing him to pursue a cure for death, has passed, that all he wishes for is the best for his brother and her. She tells him that on her wedding day, all she is asking for is no more lies. He insists this isn't a lie, and because of this, she tells him to leave. And when he initially refuses, she smacks him, causing him to storm off. Victor returns to his chamber, and it is revealed that something, or rather someone, has broken in. Victor pieces together who has entered the chamber and demands the man come out. We see that this is actually the first time the man requested Victor to make a companion, but Victor has already vowed off this idea. The man insists because he cannot die, and without a companion, he feels he cannot live. Victor asks what the purpose would even be. He's worried about reproduction of creatures that cannot die and demands the man leaves, saying he will never create another person. The man says that if he cannot indulge in love, then he will indulge in rage, while he throws Victor around. This commotion causes Elizabeth to enter and embrace the man. Victor tells her to move out of the way as he draws a gun, but she tries to get in the way of the bullet. When other people enter the chamber, he says the man attacked her, causing many people to try to subdue him, including William. But the man throws all of them around, causing William to fatally hit his head. Elizabeth whispers to the man to take her with him as he picks her up, and they leave as she slowly bleeds out. William's last words before succumbing to his injuries are that he has always been afraid of Victor, and that he is the real monster. Victor picks up a gun to pursue the man, Which, like, yeah, man, surely this time the gun will work. When he reaches him, the man breaks his nose and says that while Victor may be his creator, the man will be his master before leaving. Victor begins hunting the man to the ends of the earth, and we see him with the sled dogs, showing we have arrived back at the beginning of the movie. While he camps out, we see the man in the distance and Victor going back into his tent and grabs his gun and sticks of dynamite. However, the man makes it to the tent and pulls him out, dragging him through the snow. The man starts snapping Victor's bones, seeing his intentions of using dynamite to try and kill him.
Light it then and hope it does. But if it does not, I will come for you again. Light it!
We hear the explosion the seamen heard at the beginning of the movie, and as we already know, this did not stop the man, and he continued pursuing Victor. We are now present day, and the man's tale comes to an end. Victor reaches out for his hand, and he finally tells him that he is sorry for what he's done. He asks the man for forgiveness and tells him to forgive himself into existence, because if he cannot die, he must live. In Victor's final breaths, he asks the man to say his name one more time, the same way he did when it meant everything to him.
Victor, I forgive you.
The captain escorts the man off the ship, making sure he's unharmed, and he leaves peacefully, pushing their ship free. The captain, after hearing the man's cruel tale, tells the men to turn the sails around. They're going home, as we see the man who at last feels some sort of peace, and the movie ends. This movie is so sad, man. The way the actors portray the characters, you can feel all of the emotions throughout the movie. I usually like to put my complaints at the end of the video, but I really couldn't find anything to complain about. Despite that, calling this one of my favorite horror movies would be pretty disingenuous. This is a fantastic movie with great production, but I do enjoy more traditional horror elements. And that's not me complaining that there weren't like jump scares. Obviously that wouldn't fit the feel of the movie at all. It's just me saying I'm more into other types of horror. I really recommend this one. If there was something you didn't like about the movie, I would love to hear it, because I thought it was pretty perfect, so comment that down below. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I've been Kali, and I'll see you in the next one.